I guess people are still enjoying the break. Should we wait for 2 minutes or should we start? Okay. Okay. So the thing is, the Basis Labs has been an active contributor in the Mojaloop community ever since PI, I guess, 2 or 3. We have been like working with Mojaloop for quite some time. This merchant payments, I'll skip through what we have done in PI 24 and now PI 25. We have a full-fledged working demo lab available for community to come in, see how merchant payments are working using the VNow version of Mojaloop, and then they can actively, you can say, use the uh, things that we have created, which are not part of the core Mojaloop, but the allied systems like the mobile apps, they can use a baseline open source version of that mobile app and then develop on top of that. A little bit about Basis, who we are. So we are a company which is based out of Pakistan, and we are a completely bootstrap company. We actually were founded using the funds coming in from winning a fintech challenge that was sponsored by Karandas, which is more like a African enda of Pakistan, as in it's being founded by it is being funded by Gates Foundation. We are actively working in Africa, Middle East, and Southeast Asia. We are a payment processor for Visa, MasterCard, Union Pay. We are a managed service provider for Rast, which is an instant payment system of Pakistan. So these are some of our clients ever since we have been founded, and there are lots of more. So from the perspective of central banks, we are providing advisories to these central banks, State Bank of Pakistan, Saudi Central Bank. I actually was pleasantly surprised to know that we actually did the strategy for RNDPS, the R switch thing that was earlier demonstrated. We are participant of Mojaloop Foundation. We are participant of Tazama as well. We have done upstream code for Tazama quite recently. And these are the volumes that we currently process as a managed service provider. So uh, around, you can say, uh, uh, on month basis, we are processing around $4 or $5 billion worth of transactions in Pakistan using our data centers. And this is pretty much what Basis is. Now, why merchant payments? And why merchant payments in an on-premises environment? So, thing is, the more and more I talk to likes of central banks, likes of big banks, likes of financial service providers, they tend not to actually be very receptive of an idea that the hosting of the environment of any instant payment system should be outside of the country. They typically tend to act as if the instant payment system should reside in country because of their the geopolitical situation. So, for instance, in Pakistan, they are very worried about how instant payment systems are hosted. They need to have access to the data centers. They need to have access to the switches deployed in the environment of the DFSPs. Up to that level, they need access, the central bank. So what has happened in Pakistan is that you have a central bank which is regulating instant payment system, and that central bank need an access to your data center as a DFSP, and they have especially deployed hardware in the environment of a DFSP. they need a right to audit. They need to make sure that whenever they want to audit our DFSP, they can go in and they can audit the DFSP, its infrastructure. They can ask them to do certain testing. They want to do a security testing independently as well. So from my perspective, there's this basic level one principle that actually derives Mojaloop, and then which actually derives the digital public infrastructures. So, uh, and if you talk about cost, uh, the cloud cost that is being charged to say economies like us, or say Africa, there are very strict forex rules that you have to like follow. So if a country who does not have, or the country that is who has a uh, annual net dollar income in negative and is relying on the funding coming in from World Bank or IMF or likes of these, they cannot choose to lose uh, precious forex on cloud costs, right? So for that matter, these countries need to have their infrastructure completely deployed in their own countries, right? I understand that the cloud cost in itself, or the infrastructure that the cloud providers provide, are top notch. They have all the things, all the security elements that are there, but still, the right to audit, or the right to actually do compliance testing and all these things, and the central banks need all of them to be like insured in their instant payment system. So having said that, like we when we started doing this demo lab deployment, we had to like make sure all the hardware that we have, I'll have a separate session on how to what are the perks of having on premises deployment down the lane. But just so everyone is on board, I have this uh, little exercise to actually make sure everyone is woken up, uh, taken time out, and then let's continue. So, in this exercise, what we are doing is we are creating. Uh, so, in my perspective, having an instant payment system deployed in a country is more akin to uh, doing a normal consumer buying behavior. So the thing is, the people sitting in a central bank uh, are people as well. So they have to take these decisions of what instant payment system they had to deploy. For that matter, there are people, and they choose between Mojaloop or any out of the box solution uh, that comes commercially, as in uh, you have likes of BPC, CMA providing an instant payment system as well, which is closed source, not open. You can't see the code, but they do work as well. So for that matter, we have created two separate type of a soft drink. So you have a Coca-Cola, which is a very well-known brand, and then you have a Moja Cola. The Moja Cola is a local brand, as in developed in your country, but is charging more than what a Coca-Cola would charge. So, for that matter, if people sitting in this room, they have to decide between Moja Cola or Coca-Cola, what would they choose? So, leaving the blue stripe guys out of this. So, what would be your decision? As in, so this is more to do with the perception versus perspective. I'll give you a perspective, but say this is about more. This will not be like related to any patriotism or anything like that. But the thing is, if you have a choice to do between Coca Cola and Moja Cola, what would you choose? Coca Cola, right? And why would you choose Coca Cola? So it's cheaper, and it's the same cold drink. Like it has the same taste. So this is what a typical perception would be, right? But what if I tell you that this Moja Cola is a local company? It's working very hard. It doesn't had any experience of doing a soft drink brand. It learned how to do a soft drink. It procured all the necessary equipment coming in to your country. That is the reason why it is charging you an extra $5 to cover for its cost. Whereas Coca-Cola in itself does not have to do this because they are well established, they have all the capital they need, and they have been doing soft drink for quite some time. So compare it to typical instant payment system, like the likes of any commercial software provider. So these commercial software providers have been providing the payment solution for quite some time. They have all the expertise. They have a closed source software that is there. So Moja Cola in itself is like a new kid in the block. They wanted to do a complete instant payment system. So when a first deployment of Moja Cola would or Mojaloop was done, it might have costed more than what a typical instant payment system deployment would cost. The text part is something of your uh, cloud cost, right? So you pay cloud cost on your deployment. Now, down the lane, Moja Cola got a very good CFO. He expensed out all the capital expense in the first year of running the business. And now Moja Cola is relatively cheaper than Coca Cola. What would you choose? Moja Cola or still Coca Cola? Moja Cola, right? So here's the thing, a relatively cheaper price will still not make consumers shift from a very well known brand to a relatively newer brand, right? The thing is, it has to be significantly cheaper than what a standard instant payment system would cost. So, for that matter, now down the lane, if you have like, we have few people who changed their answer and few people who didn't. Now we actually changed it to be very cheaper than what a standard Coke would charge you. But there is a catch to it. So, Moja Cola is available across the country. So, if you go into a supermarket, they'll charge you probably zero point 0.2. But if you go and take same Moja Cola in a place like airport or a very fine dining restaurant uh, with a French cuisines in it, they'll probably charge you zero point 0.4. But this is the max price that you'll get charged. On this stage, you would essentially shift your perspective and would like to have Moja Cola because of the fact that it is locally made, it is much cheaper to be bought, and has the same taste, right? So why would a supermarket charge different? This is pretty much similar to what happens in open source. As in, so if at the very initial stage, development cost of a software is higher, it goes down with the passage of time because software is completely made. It is now in an iterative approach, and then you have a choice to implement it. So if you choose a local partner to implement the complete solution, you probably will get it much cheaper than if you hire someone coming in from outside. So the capabilities that you want to develop, it's locally, will make your instant payment system deployment much and much easier and much efficient if you go for an open source solution. So this is a simple pyramid shape where you see all the cost of a instant payment system deployment. So there's this one infra cost, one implementation cost, and then there is a payment system software cost. So if you have a local implementation coming in, the cost of this will go down. Similarly, if you have an on-prem infrastructure coming in and that on-prem infrastructure is then being supported by a local companies who are essentially installing these infrastructure, helping you out with your instant payment system, have is more cheaper to deploy. The payment system is readily available, is available to you 24 into 7 manner. Then your cost to do a Mojaloop deployment is virtually zero. That is something that has happened over a period of time, and I know this for sure because of the fact that we have seen a deployments ranging from multiple commercial software providers. So once a commercial software provider comes in, they deploy a instant payment system, and then they rely on change requests. They rely on all the business changes, evolving business changes that are coming in, and they essentially stop the innovation because central banks have their budget constraints, central banks have their uh, a procurement policy to follow. For Mojaloop, virtually it's zero. Now, moving on to our deployment of this merchant payments, just a demo lab. In this demo lab, we have like a merchant registry portal that is already being upstreamed to the Mojaloop V now. Then we have a payer P middleware connected. This too is being open source. Customer app and app services, core banking simulator, all of these things have been open source. So in the end of the slide, you'll have all the links to actually have uh, all these things downloaded and deployed. So just a demo lab setup, merchant payment tool, merchant app, consumer app, Mojaloop, and then alias services. So where do we have the videos? This is merchant creation. So this is already, I guess, being upstream to the Mojaloop repository. So this is, can you play? Okay. Yeah. So if this is something that a DFSP will get to actually onboard an alias of a merchant on a Mojaloop platform, simple KYC stuff. You'll add in, submit merchant information. So there's a maker checker 4i principle. So a user will actually a maker will actually create a merchant, and then there will be a checker who will authorize his merchant entry into the ALS system. Before this, a merchant cannot actually do transaction or get a QR coming in on his mobile app. Uh, Quickly skim through this. Hamza, fast forward, checker. So this is I have actually yeah. So the checker one's next slide. Not the merchant creation, merch checker. Next slide, yeah. So this is a merchant approvals where a simple logic of approving a merchant is there, right? An approval will have a UI whereby he'll see all the records that have been sent to them for checking if the merchant is valid, doing uh, enhanced due diligence around the merchant, if the merchant should be allowed in the payment ecosystem or not. And then there is this alias generation. So this an alias will be generated with merchant information that the merchant can use to receive payments. Can we skip to the apps functionality? Yeah. So this is a simple back office that we created, which contains net debit positions from the central ledgers being shown. On the left hand side, there is a merchant app. On the right hand side, there is a customer app. So on the merchant app, the merchant will generate a QR. QR can be static, dynamic. A dynamic QR will be time barred, whereby payments would be accepted on a certain amount of time. If not, the QR would expire. This is a dynamic QR generated. A customer actually scans the QR. Customer is having a hard time, just like us. Then he does a payment, both of the apps, and then there is this back office that on which you see the merchant payment being accepted, transferred, successfully being done. इसके बाद तो कुछ नहीं. So this is completely on the current version of Mojaloop, as in V now, right? So you guys can go out and see. So all the allied systems, as in all the this app, this back office, and all the components around is are available on our GitHub repository. The merchant registry and all V now is available on the Mojaloop standard repository, right? If you have any questions around merchant payments, how we are doing it, if you need any help regarding the merchant payments piece that we have done, if you want to use this merchant demo lab, you are happy to do. We'll be happy to help you guys out. I guess this is it. And I'm really sorry for the break we had, but we do enjoyed great Kigali music in between. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Azim and team. Does anybody have a quick question for Azim? Yes, there's one. I'll take the one question there. I think that's George there.
Yeah, I had a couple of quick questions. So the first one was, is it possible to do the registration via API, or I have to go through the portal? That's number one. The number two, who does the merchant registration? Is it the merchant themselves or the acquirer for the merchant? Because the acquirer of the merchant could be a bank, it could be a wallet provider, mobile money provider. So how did you think through the architecture and the business logic of the merchant registration?
So the thing is, like, a DFSP will be the primary participant who will onboard a merchant. So in a P2M system, like, there is a person and there is a merchant. The merchant due diligence is there. There is a merchant registry, but essentially you have all the APIs that you can consume to onboard a merchant, right? So there is a two-layer security in the back office whereby there is a maker, there is a checker, but you can essentially automate that entire stuff using the APIs that are readily available in the upstream code as well. So if you want to consume that, you can, but from P2M perspective, the participant that will onboard the merchant would be a bank, an acquirer who will receive funds and then will disperse it to the merchant. So this is how it is being structured as of now. So your perspective around this. So uh, if a sole proprietor or someone who does not have you can say uh, a merchant account and want to actually use uh, person to person rails, this is something that's being already being done. It is not so you essentially have scheme rules that actually bifurcate between a person to person transaction or person to merchant transaction, right? So Mojaloop being a switch will allow routing of a person to merchant transaction on the rails of person to person as well. But being said that, you should ideally not be using a person to person rails for person to merchant transaction, because then you don't have any claim per se scheme rule. So if there is a scheme whereby an authority is regulating merchants, so if there is a chargeback, if there is a refund, you can actually claim those refund. This is how scheme rules are structured, right? So that in that perspective, this is like an acquirer onboarding a merchant.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Just following on from that, do you have plans for incorporating the merchant acquisition APIs with the rest of the Mojaloop family of APIs? And if so, can I help in any way in my capacity as a rapporteur for the Change Control Board?
We can do that. The thing is, we essentially are, so these guys, so they have actually done it, right? And they are actually standing here only, not doing this presentation. I am not the guy who actually does this. These guys do this. The thing is, these guys are very good at writing a code, but these are guys are very bad at writing documentation, right? And a hell lot of documentation when you talk about Mojaloop, right? So they'll be better off giving you the code, and if you can convince the guys to do it upstream, we'll be happy to support. But they are good with documentation. For that matter, they can provide you all the code you want.
So I'm going to take that as a no.
So the thing is, we can, like, the thing is, we have, I guess, you guys have upstreamed it to the Mojaloop. So there's a thing like they have created all the code, and so the mobile app is is an APK. I'm not sure would Mojaloop would be willing to add that into the upstream or not.
No, I was thinking more of the acquisition APIs.
So
as
acquisition
George was
APIs, as in the merchant registry is already there, but yeah, so the acquisition APIs can be actually, but you mean you wanted to add it in the standard FSIO?
Yeah, so I was just going back to the answer that you gave George, saying, yes, you can do all of this through APIs.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, we've got a whole section of the community documentation that talks about the APIs and defines them and says, this is how you use them and all those kinds of things. I'm just thinking how nice it would be if the merchant acquisition APIs.
Yeah, we
Well,
can do
welcome
that.
into
Like
that
the thing is, I'll do an upstream push. Let's see where it takes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anything else?
All right, let's give them a quick round of applause. Thank you, gentlemen.